How many builders in the room? Right? Builders? Holy shit, that was loud. Okay, so how many breakers? Okay, now how many people do security for a living here? Is there any other security people in the room? Yeah, this is what it feels like to be at a developer conference as a security person. This is really exciting. So I'm going to talk about. It's broken. Shh, I didn't do that. All right, that was great, unexpected. So I'm going to talk on builders versus breakers. If anyone is scared of talking about feelings, please leave now. It's a non-technical talk. If you're looking for live coding, that's elsewhere. If you're looking for O-Days, that's elsewhere. We're going to talk about builders versus breakers. Hi, everybody. I'm Adam. You can find me on Twitter, Adam_Baldwin, Lyft Security, Node Security, and GitHub as Evil Packet. I am the CSO, Chief Security Officer, as well as the Chief of Software Operations for And Yet, and I am the team lead at Lyft Security, And Yet sort of project. So that puts me builder on one hand and breaker on the other, and wedges me firmly in between these two communities. And it's the topic of builders versus breakers has tormented me for a number of years in my career. And I didn't realize at first, it sort of snuck up on me, and I approached things as a typical breaker would. I only looked at my perspective early on in security. I looked at my perspective of how I thought of security problems and how I approach them. And so what I'm going to talk about today is basically all the things that I screwed up as a breaker, and try to give the builders a perspective of that. And hopefully we'll come away from it understanding a little bit more of both the builder perspective and the breaker perspective, and how we can both actually work better together by understanding each other a little bit more. And again, through my failures, and then through some just ideas that I have. So how many of you you've met a lot of people at the conference, right? A lot of new people. Has anyone walked up to you and said, hey, that shirt, yeah, that shirt, that hat doesn't really work on you. You should wear a different hat. It's better shaped for your head and for your face, right? Nobody walks up to you and introduces themselves that way, right? That's tends to be how security people do it, how breakers do it. This is how I met Adam Brault, the founder of And Yet, 5 years ago, and this is when the start of my thinking about this topic sort of started. I sent him an email. And I said, fix your CAPTCHA so the value isn't actually in the form. It was insecure. Put it in the session and check the post. Here's a mutual friend of ours. That's how I introduced myself. In hindsight, that's pretty crass. That's not really a good way to start a relationship with somebody. It's like, hey, your stuff's broken. Yeah, do something about it. Whatever. I don't really care. So that was sort of the beginning of my thinking on the subject, introduced myself, and so that's one thing. Just kind of keep this in mind as we go along. This is the start of that. Another project that I worked on was evilpacket.net, and I thought I was reporting these web vulnerabilities to builders, to developers, to projects, and I was getting like nobody cared. Nobody respond, might fix it. And I thought maybe that understanding was founded in that misunderstanding was founded in, they didn't understand the impact. Developers didn't understand the impact of what those vulnerabilities, what could cause, right? And it turns out that's wrong, and it's sort of like, ended up being, when I look back on it, it was effective in getting things fixed. And sure, some people did learn some things about vulnerabilities and exploits and whatever, but it was a very negative way to do it. And I'm going to talk specifically about some of those in a minute. Just kind of keep these in mind as we go. Ryan, are you here? Ryan, all right. So this one's for you. Back as a breaker, I thought it was a great idea to start going to developer conferences. You guys, see, I said it right there. Builders are my audience, right? From a security perspective, I want to talk to you. It's really hard for me not to say to you guys and separate myself. So at JSConf in Portland, Ryan gave me the feedback during my talk. I kept saying, you guys this, you guys that, point, rant. Typical breaker mindset. And I was given very direct feedback. I don't remember the exact tweet. I couldn't find it, but it was something, something of the, this guy's saying, you guys is just like a lot, like stop. And it's really, really, really impacted my thinking. Like those two words and that feedback, I don't think you realize just how much it's had an impact on my thinking about the interaction between the two communities. And when you're speaking, if you, as a builder, as a developer, if you're going to go speak at a security event, remember, be a part of that community because you are. We really are. We really have a relationship that is very dependent on each other. Don't alienate yourself like I did. Like don't. It was just I missed a huge opportunity to connect with people and get my message across because I just put up that wall. I'm an outsider looking in. I'm not. I'm just saying blah blah rant. So again, keep that in mind and thank you. So let's tell a little bit of a story about a specific organization that will kind of demonstrate some of the things that I'm talking about. Basecamp Classic, 37 Signals was I found a vulnerability in Basecamp in which you could take over any account. This was a few years back. And I let 37 Signals, no, it's actually the second video I published on Evil Packet. And during that process, I contacted support, and I wrote them a nice email. I tried to look it up, I didn't have it. And I basically said, here's the problem. I got a response back from the support that said, basically, our clients like to be able to do this, like to put JavaScript in the pages and whatever, and basically what they said is that it's a feature. And this was my answer. Cross-site scripting is not a feature, and I made a video about it and put it on the internet. And they got raked over the coals. In hindsight, feeling-wise, I felt terrible for what was going on there. But we'll get to it now. Feelings. So let's talk about what's happening on both sides when these things are reported. So imagine yourself as the developer, as the builder in this scenario. I want you to really think hard about how you would feel. So as the breaker, this is how I feel. I get an enormous adrenaline high from finding security bugs in your software. I love it. So I do this thing at work, like I skip down the hall and I like do a jig, and as the coworkers can attest, I skip and holler and jump and get excited, and I'm happy. I'm happy to find a flaw in what you did, and that's most security people. They get really excited. They're like, they just get pumped up. What happens on the other side when I tell the developer about that flaw? What happens is they feel, right? You get the exact opposite reaction. And this realization that I've had that it's causing anxiety. If you don't know how to handle the problem, you have immediate anxiety about how do I address this problem. You might be pissed off that I pointed out your flaw. Who wants their stuff paraded around the internet that they had this flaw, right? You're pointing out mistakes, or the breaker's pointing out mistakes the builder has made. It's not a nice thing to have somebody say, hey, your stuff's broken. And as a security person, we don't have a lot of vested interest. We basically don't empathize with your position. Traditionally, we think of, hey, this is the most important thing in the world. We found this vulnerability. This is the thing, the security. You should take and fix it right now because I'm excited about it. But you're not. It's the complete opposite. Plus, you have things like, oh, I don't know, conferences to go to, and I don't know, bugs to fix, and other things to do besides fix my thing, which to me is the most important thing in the world. To you, it might just be a very small thing. So instead, we can kind of look at it this way, and my son said there needed to be flags on the castle, so on the plane he drew flags on it. So imagine it this way instead, that extreme high is like, instead looks like a wave. And really, what a breaker's bringing to you, sort of depending on how they bring it to you, they're going to say, here's this problem. Really, they're saying there's a wave coming. There's something coming, and it's going to, hey, you got your sandcastle. You might want to do something to your castle to protect it, to move it. And if you're prepared for that communication, and you understand that their intention is not to knock your sandcastle over, but to actually warn you about something coming towards your sandcastle. It's the beach. I had to make a sandcastle analogy. If you understand that that's their intention, it's going to reduce that negative aspect, that negative feeling that you have when you have that problem reported to you, when you have that experience. And it actually becomes a more positive experience. So, how can we work better together? And I love this because, we're builders and breakers can work together and should. We rely very heavily on each other. Breakers, if you guys, I said it again. If it's really hard. If builders don't build anything, I don't have anything to do as a breaker. And so we need you. We need builders, and builders need the feedback of breakers because they think differently. They have that different opinion, that different perspective. So what's the biggest thing here? Communication, right? It's really all about communication between the builders and the breakers. My coworker Stephanie Meyer wrote this morning, got published, about listening. And this applies to both sides. When we listen, really listen, we reveal respect, support, understanding, and empathy. We also possess the power to impart a renewed confidence, clarity, and a sense that everything is going to be okay when we listen well. So let's give some thoughts on how we can listen better and how we can communicate better. Let's go back to the base camp classic story, because that's not the end. They didn't just get raked over the coals and everything. Okay, that's where it stopped. What happened was they responded by understanding that this was going to happen again, that they were going to have somebody else report something to them. They were going to have to deal with breakers. And so they built a security response process. They made a page that said, we appreciate your concern, we appreciate the breakers. They're trying to understand the breaker perspective and understand that what we're offering to them is of some value. To me, that feels good. Makes it feel valuable for what I'm providing, and makes me want to go a little bit more of an effort, put more effort in. They said, here's expectations for tracking and disclosing security issues, right? Here's what you can expect for communication and such. And thanks for working with us. And we're going to put your name on this list so you get some credit out of it. Because that's the motivation of a lot of breakers, right? The people getting paid to do a lot of consulting work don't have time to work on random stuff and just throw stuff out there. The ones that have the time to do that are the ones trying to make a name for themselves. They're working on it for the ego, for the credit, so they can build their resume and they can build their skills in the security community. And whether it's right or wrong, they're going to play with your apps. That's what they're going to do. So they give them some credit. It gives them something to hold on to and feel good about. So as a developer, what can I do as a developer? For projects, we've got contributor.md, we got readme, right? Why not a security.md? Why not add to your projects how you want issues reported to you? Because unfortunately, based on the relationship of the builder and the breaker and the responsibility for the project, you have a lot of the communication onus on yourself as a builder. You have way more responsibility, and you're going to get these things logged over, and you don't know how they're going to come in. So try to put it out there on how you want these reported to you. What are some of the expectations that this person will receive? You're going to respond in 24 hours. Just it doesn't have to be detailed or complex. And put a list of humans there. Put people that have contributed, thoughts, bugs, security bugs, whatever. Give them some credit. We know a lot of open source projects you can't give them cash. It's not a big bounty program, right? Maybe some swag or a mention that's great for for what they're looking for. If you want a good example of this, look at the Ember security policy and how they do things. It's a great baseline for what you could include. It's pretty detailed, and it's based on a lot of security community research and things like that. Go check it out. One other thing you can do is self-disclosure of vulnerabilities. Who wants to do that? That's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing for us as developers, to just put our flaws out there instead of just patching it, little commit message, throwing it in the repo. And I'm going to talk about a project here in a little bit that I'd like, if you're writing Node apps, I'd love you to disclose to, because we got a really interesting project going on. And actually handling a security failure or a problem properly and publicly can build trust. There's a great example from a client of mine, GitHub, and they do a great job of handling these things. Whenever they have a problem, right, they disclose a ton of detail. They write a blog post about here's what happened, here's what we're going to do about it, here's the technical bits, and we all learn from it. And they do this because they realize they're in a position of technical leadership in the community, and chances are, so are many of you in your different areas as a builder. So you can lead in the same example, in the same way. So now I'm going to talk about a project that I started based on what I've been learning over sort of the past 5 years of these. And as one thing that I hadn't mentioned yet is that all of those things, those failures of mine, and the closeness that I've been to and a lot of other development teams, have got me to really empathize with builders and the feelings that you go through when you have something reported to you. And it's really, really hard for me now to have these feelings and empathy to drop an O-Day about a product. I feel like a complete asshole if I did that, right? I would just I'd feel horrible, and it doesn't help anything. It's a very negative thing to do. There's an interesting example out there right now, PayPal. PayPal's got a bug bounty program. There's a 17-year-old that tried to disclose a bug to them, and he's not old enough to get a bounty. So he just dropped it on full disclosure and said, oh, here you go. And they actually made it worse by not really trying to work through the problem with, they're just like, whatever, it's just simple. Now we got the information, just go away. It actually turned into a much larger wave than using it as a sort of early warning. So now that I've covered all the stuff that I forgot to talk about earlier, let's talk about the Node Security Project. Who's here has heard about the Node Security Project? Wow, awesome. So the Node Security Project is something that as a CSO at Andiet, my job is to care about building secure software. And I started by trying to figure out how are people going to try to break our product and bang? How are we going to find, who's going to report flaws in it, and how can we attack it? What I came down to was, well, there's this NPM thing. We're trusting a lot of modules. We're trusting a lot of third-party code. And so we started looking into problems. Well, we had one thing where the password hashes were disclosed from NPM, right? People might have heard of that and had to change their password on NPM, so all those were disclosed. We had a cross-site request forgery protection to the NPM site. And I've had a lot of discussion with Isaac, about the security of NPM, and so there's been a lot of conversations between builder and breaker community there that led up to this particular project and some of the things that the security of NPM. So I thought, what's the next layer? Well, what's next for Node Security Project is we need to check out the security of the modules, the things that we trust, right? The things that all of the builders doing Node projects trust. So it's an experiment to bridge the security community with the builder community. We're taking both of these communities and mashing them together and trying to get them to play nice. And I really, really, really was nervous about how we were going to have these researchers and how we were going to handle the organization. And it turns out it's not very hard. The ones that have come on board are really, really excited to work with builders, and they understand that we don't have to be, assholes to make change and have good progress. Here's some major contributors to date. Adam Brault from our team, Nathan Lafreniere, Bear, Michael Rogers, Mr. Daniel Shaw, Neil Poole, who's a security researcher, Luca Caratoni, Stephen Rivas, who's a Node developer. He's helping us build tools. He doesn't really know anything about security, but we rely so heavily on builders that can help us build tools that our mindset's just that's not what we do. So we have to, like static analysis and things like that, to do it really efficiently and well. We're relying in our workflow, we're relying on builders to help us. Arlo Brault and Jacopo Tarantino, again, another builder that's helping us build our portal to disclose advisories and things like that, our workflow. So what are our goals? We're going to audit every module, which is pretty much absolutely a crazy thing. Isaac said it's a massive, ambitious, potentially ocean-boiling undertaking, and it is. We figured out a way to do it efficiently, and if you want to know some of the technical bits, I can go into that sort of after. But we're going to audit, say 31,000. That number's gone up since I fixed this last night. And then we're going to fix the broken modules. But traditional security projects just go, your thing's broken, go fix it. We're going to report the issues we find as best we can. We're going to try to do it privately. If we can't do that, try to get a hold with a maintainer. We can't do that. We'll end up putting an issue in the repository. Stop texting me. And we're going to try to do it in a very polite and positive way. We're trying not to be like all the history of that. We're trying to break out of that mold. And we're going to send pull requests. We're not going to publish an advisory without something fixed. If a module is 2 years old, and we find a vulnerability in, the maintainer doesn't want to do it, or doesn't exist anymore, or whatever, we're going to supply a patch. Pull requests. All right, thanks, Felix. That's the difference. We're trying to cross that line and fix stuff instead of just cause problems. So here's an example of communication on Hubot, GitHub. So their client, we tried to report it internally. They said, go ahead and put it in the repo, and the maintainers will take care of it. We published it, and at midnight, the issue was just closed silently. We put this vulnerability in there. Issue was closed silently, no comment. One of our researchers said, I think you may have closed the wrong issue. It's small, sorry. The code for email.coffee is still vulnerable. Not taking an attacking tone, thinking that maybe there was a mistake, making sure that we communicate, not just say, well, all right, we're just going to publish an advisory, whatever, and be done with it. No. So Tom says, I closed the correct issue. Hubot is running a trusted environment. If you don't trust people, you allow access to Hubot. I think you should stop allowing them access to Hubot. We didn't particularly agree with that, but again, we didn't take an attacking tone. Neil did a great job of communicating this, and it's a great example of what we're trying to do. I appreciate that he acknowledges, because it's true. If you have trusted people, sure. He says, I appreciate that, but Hubot is open source. There's no guarantee that Hubot will be run in a trusted environment. And also, even if that guarantee did exist, just because you give somebody access to Hubot doesn't mean you want them running arbitrary code, in this case, on your server, right? At the end, instead of arguing, because we could just continue to banter back and forth, this fix should be fairly straightforward. Would you be willing to just consider merging a pull request? I think the next day, we whipped up a patch, sent it, merged, done. Didn't have to argue. Didn't have to fight over it. It was just done. So it was fantastic. And then we're going to publish the results. We're not publishing anything that does not have a fix for it. So we're going to try really, really hard to have those pull requests, have those patches. Here's an example of just a few that we found already that have gone through the pipeline. How you can contribute is basically all detailed at nodesecurity.io. I need people to do patches. There's issues we have marked there that says need patch. And I'm not the best person to write those. So I need help in that area. And it's something that somewhere you could contribute. Usually they're just quick little one-offs. It probably takes somebody that's a good builder, 15, 20 minutes maybe, less. It'd take me, okay, I got to figure out how to write JavaScript again today. Yeah. Quick recap. So we have a relationship, builders and breakers, that rely upon each other. We all have and need to respect and understand the feelings of the other party and realize that we both do have good intention. We have to communicate and listen effectively. Try to be nice and positive about it. We can break out of that mold. We can do things differently. We have an amazing community, and it's okay. It's okay to screw up. Like, there's going to be researchers that are going to be jerks to you, and there's going to be builders that don't listen to researchers and breakers, and we just have to fight through that and remind those parties that hey, here's how we could work through this, and don't immediately take the attacking tone. Don't immediately dismiss something that a breaker says. We have good intentions, both sides, and if you want more information, want to chat about it, I'll be available later. I also have node security stickers, because when you put a lock on something, it's more secure, right? And that's it. Any